Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Casual Criminalist. As always, I'm your host Simon. I'm what am I right? In this case, Kevin writes me an episode. This was a little bit different. This is the first time we've ever done anything like this. It's an anthology episode. I think Kevin pitched me something, or I pitched something to Kevin, and he was like, dude, there's not enough material here. Do you want me to compile similar cases together? And I was like, yeah, go on then. We'll see how it goes. And if this episode gets lots of views, we'll do more like this. Honestly, it sounds kind of interesting to me, so I hope so. Let's jump in the format of the show. If you're new here, have never read this before, we're going to explore it together, dear writer. Dear audience. Dear writer, what am I talking about? Let's go! When I first started writing for Simon, it was exclusively over on Decoding the Unknown. Was that really? Wow, I didn't know that, Kevin. I mean, I guess I did, but I didn't remember it. My first script was Pink Floyd and the Publius Enigma, a mystery that was near and dear to my heart, and Simon enjoyed it despite his objectively incorrect opinion that Pink Floyd is garbage. Nah, Pink Floyd's not very... I don't think I ever said they're garbage. I just don't think they're very good. Since then, Simon revealed he was a big fan of internet mysteries and requested I write more of them. So I did. I wrote about every single internet mystery I could find that was long enough and interesting enough to carry a full episode. And honestly, a couple that weren't. Sorry about that. It's like, Kevin, yeah, new script. Lots of filler, Kevin. He's like, Simon, yeah, because the mystery was about 3 lines. But in searching for and subsequently researching all of those mysteries, I had to travel to a lot of dark corners of the internet, be it on the clear web or the dark web. Ooh, Kevin went on the dark web. This should come as a surprise to roughly 0% of our listeners, but it turns out there are much more nefarious things lurking across the internet than cute little mysteries about key lime pie or bootleg Chinese princess wands. Hell, one of my first scripts on this channel was about the internet's first serial killer, and the internet often plays a role in modern true crime stories. Yeah, I don't know a single time we've done an episode set in, say, the 21st century, where the internet hasn't really played a role. Of course, not all of those stories are long enough for their own episodes, no matter how much I pad out the script with rambling introductions. To that end, I don't have a single story for you today. Instead, I'll be taking you through an anthology of horror and death, where the key moments were broadcast online for the world to see. Oh my god, okay, here we go. It's like Decoding the Unknown, except really dark and horrible. Perfect World Void. Released in China in 2005, then North America and Europe in 2008, Perfect World was a fairly typical MMORPG. Massively multiplayer online role-playing game, right? I don't think I've played these, but like World of Warcraft famously, right? The game was based on Chinese mythology, causing it to be more popular in China than in the Western world, where games like World of Warcraft reigned supreme. Still, it had a reasonable size user base, and the game is still up and running, though best estimates put the current player base at only around 40,000. Well, it's a very old game, like 2008? That's old for a game, right? What games are still being played? I guess World of Warcraft. When was that made? However, like any game that has been running for that long, changes have to be made. New content is introduced, items are rebalanced, level caps are raised, and so on. I have no idea what any of that means, other than new content being introduced. Items are rebalanced. Oh, they are they, Kevin? Excellent. Good to know that those items are being rebalanced. Online games with a frequent update schedule are generally seen as a good thing. It means that the developers are actively trying to create the best experience for their players as possible, but sometimes players don't like the changes being made. If there's enough public outcry, the developers may revert certain changes, but usually things just continue to press onward. Or in the case of Blizzard, they just release World of Warcraft Classic and let players start over from scratch with the original game. That's obviously an outlier though. Again, got no idea what this is about. What is World of Warcraft Classic? I'm not even entirely sure what World of Warcraft is. It just seemed a bit too fantasy for my liking. In the case of Perfect World, there was a vocal minority of players who didn't enjoy the direction the game was going in. They weren't large enough to cause real change in the game, so instead they broke off and created their own server called Perfect World Void, balancing the game to their preferred specifications. The creators of Perfect World Void also set up a Discord server where the community could converse with one another and make plans to raid together and whatnot. What fun. It was a small but active community, with one community member in particular standing out to most players. His name was Menhaz, and he was chronically online. Other members of the Perfect World Void server said that he'd be playing the game when they all went to sleep, and when they woke up, he was still there. He was also a notorious troll. The Discord server was full of dark humor and questionable takes, the sort of stuff you'd expect from a bunch of edgy teens. I'm like, wow, a Discord server full of dark humor and questionable takes? What? such a thing would exist. But even in a server full of fellow edgelords, Menhaz was seen as consistently taking things too far. He made repeated homophobic and racist remarks, particularly against Muslims. He had been raised in a Muslim household, but he would later become an atheist and spend his time constantly bashing the religion. Can you be racist against your own? I guess you can, right? Yeah, of course you can. Don't know why I had to question that for a second, but I guess you can be racist against yourself. This inappropriate behavior resulted in Menhaz being banned from the server multiple times, though he was always eventually allowed back in. Despite being a massive edgelord, he was generally seen as a nice guy who made people laugh. Or maybe they only let him back in because his in-game character was an elf cleric, and it's really just that difficult to find a good healer. Again, Kevin. Great. He's an elf cleric, is he? Good. They do healing, do they? Good. You had no idea what was going on. But who exactly was Menhaz, and why was he seemingly always online instead of ever going to school or work? Maybe he was just rich. Maybe he's just like, he's just like a family money billionaire. He's just like, what did he choose to do with his life? Play, what the fuck was this game called? Perfect World Void. Menhaz Zaman was the son of Menhaz Zaman and Momtaz Begum. The couple were born in Bangladesh, and their marriage was arranged by their parents. However, they wanted a better life for themselves and their future children. Average income and the quality of life has improved dramatically in Bangladesh over the past 20 years or so, but not so much in the 1980s and 90s. Menhaz moved to Canada first, earning enough money as a cab driver to bring Momtaz to Canada as well. Which is good, because marrying someone, then moving to a different country and never seeing them again, would be a bit weird. Menhaz was a hard and respected worker, earning multiple awards at the cab company where he worked. He even earned enough money not just to buy a house for the family, but to buy 2 more houses to use as rental properties. Oh my god, is taking taxis really expensive in Canada or something? God damn. Because once upon a time, houses were something people could actually afford to purchase. Not that I'm bitter or anything. In 1996, the couple had their first child, Menhaz. A couple of years later, they had a daughter, Melissa. In order to help raise the kids, they decided to move Momtaz's mother, Firoza Begum, to Canada to live with them as well. Menhaz and Momtaz wanted the best for their kids, which started with a good education that would lead to a good job, and a good job would lead to a good and prosperous life. Like many South Asian parents, they believed there were only 2 acceptable career paths for their children: doctor or lawyer. Doctor or lawyer? Doctor or engineer! Oh, okay, engineer. I didn't know that. Okay. This meant that Menhaz and Melissa had to study hard so they could get into good schools and earn jobs in those professions. Both of them did well in school, but Menhaz was considered the golden child. Everyone knew that he was Momtaz's favorite of the 2, and some of her behavior could be seen as overly attentive. For example, if she and Menhaz were at a dinner party with friends or something, and Momtaz believed that Menhaz was home and might possibly be hungry, she would leave to go and make him food. But while that sounds like he was spoiled, he was also under an immense amount of pressure, especially as the firstborn child. I feel like you can't have favorites with your children. Like, I regularly joke with my wife that I prefer one child over the other, but it's just a joke. And my wife's like, yeah, I know it's a funny joke, but you got to stop because they're going to understand soon, and then they'll actually take it seriously because they're children. I'm like, okay. Menhaz wanted Menhaz to be an engineer, so that's the way it was going to be. He did well in school and always paid attention, but classmates also felt like he wasn't really interested in being there or learning. To be fair, this was high school. I'm pretty sure most high school kids aren't that happy about going to school or learning, though my opinion may be tainted by the American education system. Yeah, I don't know. I like learning shit. I like learning shit today. I like learning shit at school. I didn't like certain lessons because I'm like, this is boring. I don't like learning this shit. But generally, I'm quite into learning shit. Anyway, as much as Menhaz was the family's golden child, Melissa was their rebel. Whereas Menhaz was shy, quiet, and socially awkward with no friends, Melissa loved to go out with friends and drink, smoke weed, and secretly date boys. Oh my! She still did well in her classes, and it was even her dream to be a neurosurgeon, whereas being an engineer was just their father's dream for Menhaz. It's like, you want to be a neurosurgeon? Try and impress me more. Come on, make an effort. Neurosurgeon. What a joke. However, it's literally brain surgery. However, this behavior caused Melissa and Menhaz to frequently butt heads. Menhaz was an extremely traditional and conservative Bangladeshi immigrant, but Melissa hadn't grown up in a Muslim country. She just wanted to live the life of a normal Western teenager. The two would argue so loudly that neighbors would call the police, and it's even reported that Menhaz would hit his daughter for being disobedient. If she stayed out past curfew, he would lock the doors so that she had to sleep outside as punishment. That's properly psycho, my dude. You're You're the one who chose to move to Canada. It's not like there was some terrible thing, as far as I'm aware. You moved there for money. You just moved there for a better life for your family. And then they're having this better life, and you're being a piece of shit about it. You made that decision, my dude. If you want them to have a Canadian life, then they're going to have a Canadian life. What the fuck? Get your shit together. Idiot. When that happens, Menhaz would usually unlock the back door to the basement and put a pillow and blanket for Melissa, so at least she could be somewhere safe, but that's obviously still not a great situation. And while all that was going on, Menhaz would be online playing Perfect World Void. His headphones allowed him to drown out the sounds of his father and sister arguing, and online, he wasn't some shy kid stuttering and looking down at his feet. He was a confident gamer who could spend hours at a time socializing with his online friends, at least when he wasn't getting himself banned from the server for being such a cringy edgelord. Seriously, when you're about to go on a tirade that begins with, "I'm not being racist, but," it's probably a time for you to just shut your fucking mouth. It's probably not great to change your username to Allah and tell everyone Islam is cancer to the current world, bro, especially since Menhaz went to mosque every Friday with his father, smiling politely at all the people he referred to privately as Muslim dogs. Classy guy. It's like cringy edgelord shit right there. Anyway, after studying hard throughout high school, all of his hard work was finally going to be rewarded. He was accepted to York University to study mechanical engineering on a full scholarship, or at least, that's what he told everyone. York is one of Canada's most selective schools when it comes to graduate programs, but for undergrads, their acceptance rate is about 89%. Despite this, Menhaz failed to get into school there. Maybe their acceptance rate was lower in 2015, but being rejected from York is likely a huge blow to his self-esteem and confidence. Instead of going to York like he claimed, he enrolled in classes at Seneca Community College. Wait, so acceptance rate is 89%, so 89% of people who apply get in? Dude, that's going to be pretty bad for your ego. Especially your dad wants you to be some flashy engineer or some shit. You're like, oh no, I didn't get into the easy school. I didn't get into my backup school. But things didn't go well for Menhaz in college. He skipped class frequently and struggled to keep up as a result, ultimately failing his classes. The next semester, he went back to repeat those classes, but it went even worse. Menhaz almost never showed up to his classes and eventually dropped out entirely. He fell into deep depression, embraced atheism, and spent all his time playing Perfect World Void and chatting with his friends on Discord. Now, you might be wondering how his family reacted to their son dropping out of school. I'm going to guess they didn't react because he probably just didn't tell them. He was the firstborn, their golden child, and Menhaz was insistent on him becoming an engineer. The news that Menhaz wasn't able to cut it in college, especially community college, would have devastated his family, so he didn't tell them. Like, Mum and Dad, I dropped out of college. They're like, oh no, you dropped out of York. And they're like, no, I dropped out of community college. Like, double whammy! After all, he'd already been lying about going to York instead of Seneca, so why not just continue lying? For the next 3 years, Menhaz, I kind of blame the parents for this one, because it's like, yo, how about you don't have such crazy expectations? Like, how about you... At this age, it's kind of the parents' fault. For the next 3 years, Menhaz would leave his house 4 mornings a week to take the bus headed for York. However, as he told one of his friends on Discord, the same bus stopped at the mall before going to the university. Menhaz would spend 4 days a week walking around the mall, finding a corner in the food court to game on his laptop, and going to the gym. His family didn't suspect a thing. Menhaz would brag to his friends about Menhaz constantly. They would all talk about how school was going when they had dinner together as a family, and there were even conversations about Menhaz continuing at York to get a master's degree in mechanical engineering. This is great. Meanwhile, he's just going and he's like gaming, he's getting fucking ripped at the gym, just leading a life of leisure. Though their parents and grandmother had no idea everything Menhaz said about school was a lie, it's possible that Melissa could have been able to figure out that her brother was completely full of shit. After all, she was no stranger to parental disobedience, which likely made her the most qualified to pick up on Menhaz's deception. But she wasn't there. She had spent her whole life butting heads with her father and finally had had enough. Melissa moved out of the house and in with her boyfriend. So for nearly 3 years, there was nobody in the house that would have recognized the lies for what they were. Eventually, Melissa and their father made amends and she moved back into the family home. She had also been accepted to York University, for real this time, unlike her brother, and she was going to start studying to be a neurosurgeon the next fall. However, from the moment Menhaz had begun his prolonged lie, he knew it was going to have an expiration date. College is only 4 years, and he was now supposed to be in his final semester. He told his parents his graduation ceremony would be on Friday the 28th of July, 2019, which gave him a deadline. Whatever was going to happen, it needed to happen before then. Unfortunately, none of his parents' friends had a child that was also graduating from York that year. If they did, they would have found out that the ceremony was actually 3 weeks earlier, on July 7th, and Menhaz would have been caught in his lie. Why didn't you find out the actual date? It's 2019, just look it up online. And then when that day comes around, just pretend to be dreadfully sick. You're an adult, you can pull it off. And then let it go by, print out a diploma and be like, yay, mum and dad, look, I'm an engineer. And then figure out the next lie. In the months leading up to his supposed graduation, Menhaz's tone in the Perfect World Void Discord became much darker than it had been. It had always been an edgy place for edgelords, something Menhaz fully embraced, but his behavior was even darker than usual. He changed his Discord name to things like subhuman and don't deserve life, and he frequently talked about killing himself. But he was always framing it in such a way that it would seem like a joke. Nobody was sure whether or not they were supposed to take him seriously, but since he'd always run his mouth like an idiot, they assumed it was all intended as a joke. Yeah, it's like the boy who cries edgelord, isn't it? But things got even darker in March. He was talking with one of his friends in the server and said that he was thinking about leaving the game. When his friend asked what server he was going to move to instead, Menhaz replied, "Gonna kill my parents and go to jail, yo." Oh my god. Okay, dude, I forgot this was a casual criminalist. Oh, under normal circumstances, this would be a giant red flag, but it was mostly seen as business as usual on the server. Yeah, this is the sort of thing that you could type as a teenage edgelord and be like, no, I just type shit. I don't think it would mean anything. It was more tasteless than the normal jokes being made, but his friend didn't take this comment seriously. This continued until July, when Menhaz finally ran out of time. At around 3 p.m. on July the 27th, the day before his supposed graduation, Menhaz made his way to the master bedroom of the family house. As part of their daily routine, Momotaz and Feroza would always take an afternoon nap together. Menhaz struck his mother in the head with a crowbar before slitting her throat. About an hour later, he did the same to his grandmother. Then he took to Discord. Oh, shit. This got intense. Don't smother your children. Look, it's obviously his fault. He murdered his parent, and his grandmother, and I'm assuming his dad at some point later. But don't smother your children. Don't make them crazy. The exact timeline of the messages isn't totally clear. Everybody else involved saved screenshots of his posts to the server and their private conversations with Menhaz, but they all lived in different time zones, so the timestamps in these images are completely useless. As such, it's unclear whether his first post on Discord was between the two murders or after the second. Either way, he posted a picture of a dead woman's body with the message, "This is my mum." He then posted a second picture claiming that it was his grandmother. Nobody was really sure what to do about this. Menhaz was their friend, and despite all of his trolling and inappropriate comments, they genuinely thought he was a very nice and caring person. Except when it came to Muslims. Yeah, wait, did he seem like a complete racist? But bigoted comments aside, he was a fun guy that was always there for them. Was their friend really some sort of psychopathic murderer? Almost everyone's first instinct was that this was some sort of grotesque troll. Either the images were faked or it just pulled them off some random gore or shock website. But not everybody was so convinced. One user, referred to only as John, believed that they were real and he began investigating. A friend of his who studied forensics was able to confirm that the injuries were genuine, not staged, so they set out doing reverse image searches. If they could find the pictures online somewhere, then they knew this was just a really shitty joke that would get Menhaz banned from the server again. The problem is, this image is this gore stuff, isn't this usually on the dark web or something? So that's not going to come up in a TinEye search or a reverse Google image search. Unfortunately, the images were nowhere to be found. The only possible conclusion that could be made from this was the pictures were the real deal, and that Menhaz had to be stopped before he killed the rest of his family like he planned to. Well, no, or it just came from a part of the non-public web. Maybe he was part of some gore Discord server. Those images are not going to come up. They're all just sick sharing images with each other. The obvious problem, is that they had no idea who he was. All they had was the name Menhaz, and that wasn't even necessarily his real name. Based on the hours he kept, they believed he was living somewhere in the Eastern Standard Time Zone, but that includes parts of Canada, the US, Mexico, a bunch of Caribbean islands, and half of South America. Though which countries line up with EST depends on whether it's on or off daylight saving times in North America. Yeah, but either way, 1 hour either side is still going to be pretty okay. And that's going to vastly increase the search area. The next step was to try and trace Menhaz's IP. That won't give exact results, but if the person isn't using a VPN, you can usually find their ISP and what city they live in. Sometimes I'd do the what is my IP thing, and it'll be I'm in a town miles away, another big town, and I guess they just route internet traffic through there or whatever, but it's oh, okay. Even if they got the wrong city, it would be the right geographical area. Yeah, they always get the country right at least. Based on that, they determined he was in or near Toronto. While all of that was going on, Menhaz was taking a nap. He woke up to a mountain of Discord messages, most of which he ignored for the time being. However, one user, known as Junior, had reached out. This was Menhaz's closest friend on the server. He replied to Junior, "This may upset you, but I did it." He was going to kill his dad and sister next, and then he hopped onto Perfect World Void to play for a bit. This gave the server's game admins the chance to trace his IP more accurately. The new result turned up a phone number and street address, which they assumed would be Menhaz's landlord. However, upon calling the phone number, they realized that the contact details they found were just the phone number and business address for the ISP. It was another dead end. At around 11:30 p.m., Menhaz replied to a message from John. He told John, "I killed Mum and Granny so far, waiting for my sister in 5 minutes, and then Dad in 1 hour." It had been over 8 hours since he'd committed the first murders, and the entire time Menhaz was hanging around the house, napping and playing video games while their dead bodies were upstairs. Just after midnight, he messaged John again, sending 2 pictures. The first was his sister's dead body, and the second was a selfie of him holding the bloody knife that he'd used to murder his family. Once again, he'd struck her with a crowbar before slicing her throat. But whereas the first 2 murders had been easy, he said that Melissa fought back for at least 10 minutes before he overpowered her. Menhaz then reiterated that he would be doing the same for his father in an hour when he got home from driving his cab. The entire Discord server was in disbelief over the murders. They had failed to stop Menhaz thus far, but perhaps they could intervene in time to at least save one person's life. How, dude? This is like TikTok. Members finally got in touch with another user in St. Paul, Minnesota, the state that borders Canada. The member called his local police, who then got in touch with Toronto police to try and track down Menhaz. There are different accounts of how they did so, with some saying that the police were able to get his address from Discord, while others claim it was from PayPal. In between the murders, Menhaz had offered PayPal money to his friends because he wouldn't need it where he was going. One of these friends jokingly said, "Give me your location if you want to be caught," to which he replied, "Not yet." As for which way the police pinpointed Menhaz's location, they never officially stated how they did so, probably for the best. That kind of stuff is good to keep private. Do you remember a few years ago where the FBI needed access to someone's iPhone after they'd died or something, or to figure out what crimes they were up to? And Apple was like, "No, we don't know how. We don't have the ability to do that." And I was like, if you're Apple, and even if you do, you got to say you don't, because otherwise people are going to be like, "Whoa, don't trust Apple anymore." And even if Apple did give it to them, the FBI or whoever would be incentivized to be like, "No, they didn't. We cracked it on our own." Realistically, the police are thought more likely to be able to track down a person's location with a PayPal account than a Discord account. Yeah, definitely, because when you sign up and do PayPal, if you want to top it up, you're going to have to enter your bank details, and they're going to have a matching address. Whereas Discord, you could be like, yeah, I live on 123 Fake Street, and Discord's going to be like, "Okay, thanks." But in the end, do you even have to? I don't think I'd give my address to Discord. But in the end, it doesn't matter how authorities found the address because it was too late. About an hour after murdering his sister, Menhaz took to the server to post, "I've slaughtered my entire family, or will probably spend the rest of my life in jail if I manage to survive. I hope I made you all laugh at one point or another. I hope you remember the good times. I will miss you all." When pressed for answers as to why he did this, Menhaz said it was because he didn't want his parents to have to live with the shame of having a son like him. He had been planning to do this for 3-4 years, ever since beginning his lie, and with his alleged graduation the following day, there was no more time to delay the act. When asked why he killed his entire family instead of just himself, Menhaz replied, "I'm a pathetic coward and a subhuman. Since I'm an atheist, I believe there's no afterlife, so I was scared to die, and I wanted them to die so that they didn't suffer knowing how much of a pathetic subhuman I was. It's all very selfish. I'm just pathetic." The next day, on July the 28th, police officers arrived at the family home in Markham, Ontario, about 18 miles from Toronto. Menhaz posted to Discord, "Police are here. Goodbye." He then went to the door to greet the police officers and let them in. When the officers asked what they were going to find inside, he simply told them, "You'll see." Menhaz had been vocal with his friends about his plan to turn himself in and face the punishment he knew he deserved, and he didn't hesitate in confessing to everything once he was arrested. Though he refused to give any motive or explanation for his actions, the Discord members had saved every message and picture he sent to them to hand over to police. His motive was spelled out completely in those chat logs. Despite the fact that these messages he sent showed that he had been planning all of this for years, the defense were able to argue that the murder of Momotaz, Menhaz's mother and first victim, could have been a more impulsive act rather than premeditated. As a result, he pled guilty to 1 count of second-degree murder and 3 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 40 years. But so he could be out at 61 after murdering his entire family. It's quite intense, isn't it? Oh my. Little Kitty's final stream. We're headed to China for today's next story, Simon, so best of luck with all the pronunciations. Oh, I'm just going to guess. Luo Maozi was a popular influencer on Douyin. For those unfamiliar, Douyin is China's answer to TikTok. Wait, isn't TikTok Chinese? So isn't TikTok the West's answer to, but it is, you know what I mean. TikTok's owned by ByteDance. Why does Chinese-owned TikTok need a separate app for China, especially since both apps are owned by ByteDance? Shut up, that's why. Or more realistically, because of communist censorship laws and the desire to shield Chinese youths from Western influences that pervade the platform. Yeah, it is kind of wild that they made TikTok basically for the West. Luo streamed under the name Xiao Mao, or Little Kitty, which makes her full streamer name often reported as Lu Xiao Mao Mao Z, which is really just fun to say, though I bet Simon is disagreeing with that right now. No, I like it. Lu Xiao Mao Mao Z. Okay. Anyway, she had a sizable audience on Douyin of nearly 700,000 followers, with her videos routinely getting millions of views. It was a combination of makeup tutorials, random life advice, and Luo just smiling and having a good time in general. Viewers were drawn in by her bubbly and cheerful nature and, of course, by her physical beauty as well. However, there were some signs that her life may not have been as happy as it seemed. In pictures and videos, Luo was frequently seen either wearing long sleeves or wrist cuffs. But in the pictures where she wasn't, fans noticed prominent self-harm scars covering her wrists. In fact, one of the most common photos of Luo used in articles about this case is usually cropped to cover the visible scars on her right wrist. Despite her bubbly online persona, she had actually been struggling with depression for some time. But that all seemed to change in 2019 when she met Zhao Rulin, another Douyin creator, at least in theory. He uploaded videos to Douyin and had some followers, but he wasn't even remotely on Luo's level. Few people were. But Luo wasn't just trying to date another influencer to chase clout. She was completely in love. She did encourage Zhao to take his channel more seriously, as his uploads were mostly just him playing basketball. Luo helped Zhao create more engaging content, encouraged him to post more regularly, and taught him how to spread his name online. She also promoted his channel constantly, leveraging her fan base to help a new boyfriend quickly expand his reach. Through her guidance, Zhao found incredible success. After 2 years together, his channel went from essentially nothing to breaking 2 million followers, exceeding Luo's own popularity. God damn. And in 2021, shortly after he hit that 2 million follower milestone, Zhao dumped Luo. Oh, dude. She made you, bro. She made you. Rather than just ending the relationship on amicable terms, Zhao instead went online to air out all of the dirty laundry of their relationship. God damn! Zhao claimed Luo was an emotionally unstable wreck who used threats of self-harm to manipulate him and get her way. He said that she would threaten to jump from a high rooftop, forcing him to get on his knees and beg forgiveness to stop her from hurting herself. Fine, dude, so break up with her and then shut the fuck up. Why would you bring all this up? That would already be bad enough, as threatening self-harm to manipulate people is pretty fucked up. But Zhao went on to say that she also faked it to get sympathy and attention from people. All those scars on her wrists were just makeup, and she was faking everything. And then there was the infidelity. Zhao claimed that Luo had frequently cheated on him. Whenever they had a fight, she would go to sleep with a bunch of rich men. Not only was this an explicit claim that she was a cheater, but it was an implicit claim that she was also a gold digger, despite being quite well off financially on her own. Oh yes, she was also pregnant, and Zhao believed that the baby wasn't his. This is all very complicated, but this does sound like your private business, mate. Everybody was shocked by all of this, especially when Luo remained completely silent on the issue. Since she wasn't refuting the claims, everyone just seemed to take Zhao at his word. It didn't help that he now had a larger following than her, so his fans likely would have drowned hers out anyway. And his fans immediately got vicious, bullying Luo online non-stop. They said she was a manipulative gaslighter, a whore, that she should jump off a building and rid the world of her presence. All totally reasonable things to say to someone you've never met before just because someone else told you to. Yeah, the internet's a shitty place though. This happens all the time. This ain't some Chinese thing. I'm reading this and I'm like, oh wow, it's the same in China. It's the same. Look, people are pieces of shit. There's these influencer things that you read about and you're just like, oh my God, who gives a shit? Stop it. Just how about you don't air out all your dirty laundry? Just shut the fuck up. Shortly after this, things took an even more bizarre turn. Luo terminated her pregnancy, so Zhao again took to social media, this time saying how disappointed he was in her decision because the baby could have been his. Bro, you said that you didn't think it was yours. The one he was sure wasn't his because she was such a cheating whore. But he did tell people to stop bombarding Luo with hate because maybe he did some things wrong too. Unsurprisingly, his fans did not stop. They never for a moment stopped bullying Luo, and eventually she was forced to tell her side of the story, and unlike Zhao, who had made a lot of wild accusations, Luo had the receipts to back up her claims. Oh shit, here we go! To start, she had never faked the scars and said she would never do something so despicable. She gave viewers a close-up view of her scars, which everyone agreed were undeniably real. She also showed medical records showing that she'd been diagnosed and even hospitalized for clinical depression. No matter how happy and beautiful she seemed on the outside, her struggle was very much real. Oh, she bring in those receipts, bro. you. To that end, the idea that she was running around sleeping with a bunch of men was ridiculous. She did her best to put on a happy face and make videos for Douyin when she could, but she didn't even want to leave her house. Hell, most days she could barely even get out of bed in the morning. Where was she going to find the time or energy to cheat on the man that she loved? I mean, that's not bringing receipts, though. That's like her side of the argument. The same could not be said for Zhao, however. In the first month that he was dating Luo, Zhao cheated on her with his ex multiple times. In retrospect, she believed that he may have just been using her for clout and to build his following. And since that worked, it provided him with lots more opportunities to cheat on Luo. Once someone achieves any online success, it's common for amorous fans to start sliding into their DMs. I'm sure Simon would be all too familiar with this, were it not for the fact that he comes across as the most asexual entity that I've ever known. Steady on. But it's just throwing some random shade there, are you, Kevin? What the fuck? But instead of... I'm just not that sort of influencer, Kevin. But instead of... And still, you don't want to see my DMs. But instead of waiting for them to slide into his DMs, Zhao slid into his fans instead. Bro, what you doing? Since those of you listening can't see the script, fans was written as a possessive, referencing DMs, though obviously he was going to slide into some of his fans as well. Oh, Kevin, no! Unfortunately for Zhao, a lot of his fans, especially early on, were also fans of Luo. One girl liked a photo he posted on social media, so he DM'd her saying, "Just a like, we should get to know each other." She replied, "Your girlfriend has a great figure." Zhao then repeated, "We should get to know each other," I said, because that doesn't sound creepily aggressive at all. Creepy, bro. Stop! Zhao tried to convince the girl that he and Lao were in an open relationship, but this was a lie, and the girl knew it. Instead of acquiescing to Zhao's brand of rather can't say that word, R-wordy flirtation, she instead released screenshots of the conversation to help clear Luo's name during this whole storm. She was not the only girl to do so either. However, not all of Zhao's fans were nearly as concerned about the fact that he was already dating someone, with many more than happy to jump into bed with their favorite internet celebrity. Bro, this is going to get you in so much trouble. Like, dude, this is not good. Don't do this. If you're an internet person, don't do this. It's a real bad idea. Despite his claims of Luo's infidelity, it was Zhao all along that was the cheater. Bro, people taking screenshots and posting their receipts, dude. What the fuck you up to? But if that's the case, why wasn't Zhao sure who the father was once Luo got pregnant? Obviously, the answer is that he was fully aware it was his, he just didn't want to accept responsibility for it. When Zhao claimed that he didn't think the baby was his, Luo repeatedly begged him to take a paternity test because she knew it was. She even tried scheduling them multiple times, but he refused to show up for one. It's almost like he knew what the results would be, and he didn't want to have a piece of paper that she could use to prove it. So, well, why the breakup then? If everything Zhao had told the public was a lie, and she wasn't an emotionally unstable and manipulative adulterer, why did their relationship have to end? Well, it seems like because he was a bit of a piece of shit. As with many things, the answer was dollar bills, y'all. According to Luo, Zhao had wanted them to open a joint bank account. He kept insisting on it even though she had no interest in doing so, and that was the real reason that he left her. Wait, isn't he the rich person by that point, or the richer person? He's got like triple her following. It's hard to know exactly what Zhao's true motivation was, whether it was money or wanting to run away from the pregnancy or something else, because both of them had an incentive to lie to their followers to make themselves out to be the good guy in the situation. But since many of Luo's claims were provably true, whereas none of Zhao's were, but many were provably false, I'm inclined to believe her account completely over his. Yes, of course, because she brought the receipts, dude. Yes. With the two having broken up, it was time to find new partners, though Zhao's new girlfriend is not relevant to this story. Unfortunately for Luo, her next boyfriend, Li, was extremely relevant because he was even worse than Zhao had been. What the fuck? What? All he was interested in was her money, treating her like his own personal ATM. Wait, she's famous and rich and beautiful. Like, what does she need from these guys? Like, in that situation, can't you just have whoever you want? Can't you find some good dude? Like some also rich, handsome, nice dude? Come on. He even tricked her into buying a house in his name. Lao also needs a better financial advisor. He claims that they were going to spend the rest of their lives together in that house, but it was all a lie. Well, in that case, how about she owns the house? Because it's her money, yes? In early October 2021, Luo and Li were enjoying a quiet evening alone. Allegedly, he drugged her water, waited for her to pass out, then invited all of his friends over to take turns sexually assaulting her. What is going on? Oh my god, I was like, Zhao's a piece of shit, but this guy's a real piece of shit. Holy shit. This story comes from Lao's closest friends who claims that she told them about the incident. Those same friends said that they urged her to report the incident to the police, but she refused to do so. I can't say for certain whether it did or not, though given what a demonstrable scumbag Lee was, it's hardly out of the realm of possibility. Immediately following the alleged incident, Lee vanished from Lao's life, cutting communication with her entirely. She was, again, left heartbroken, abandoned by another man who she loved and who had only sought to exploit her. On October the 14th, Lo uploaded a video that she said would probably be her last. The young influencer everyone knew as being so bubbly and cheerful thanked her fans, but also mentioned how she'd been struggling with depression for some time. She stated, "I appear to be happy, but this is all for show. I hope everyone will be happy when they see my videos and will see that I am happy too. But I can't hold on anymore. If you want to know the reason, please go watch my live stream." Over 1 million people saw Lo's video, and thousands immediately tuned into her stream. However, it was clear from the start that she really didn't want to be there. She was smiling as expected, but it clearly wasn't genuine. She also kept zoning out, barely interacting with chat. Multiple times she even alluded to the fact that she didn't want to be on stream, though viewers thought it looked like she was waiting for someone. Many of her fans told her to stop streaming and get some rest. They encouraged her to take a break from content creation for her own well-being, promising they'd understand if she needed a break and that they would be there when she got back. Yeah, but it doesn't work like that. I mean, maybe it does on this other stream platform. But it's like, if I'm like, yeah, I'm taking a break from YouTube, and people will be like, oh, we'll be here for you, Simon. We'll be here when you come back. But it's like, yeah, but the YouTube algorithm won't be feeding you my videos, so you'll forget about me. You can't take a break. I mean, like a long break. I mean, you can, but you're going to have to stack up those videos ahead of time. But not everyone watching were fans. Many were the same people that had been harassing and bullying her online since her breakup with Zhao 2 years earlier, and that night was no different. After a while of disinterested streaming, Luau sighed and muttered to herself, "He's still not here yet." She then pulled out a clear plastic water bottle filled with a strange dark liquid. She told her viewers it was Coke, but it was clear from the viscosity and color that it wasn't soda or any other typical beverage. Every time she took a sip, Lau involuntarily grimaced. Whatever it was she was drinking, it wasn't enjoyable. Considering the content of her previous video, a lot of those watching on stream suddenly became extremely concerned. They started begging her not to go through with it, telling her that they loved her and that she was so young and to think about what it would do to her parents and whatnot. But again, not everyone was so supportive. Some users began insulting and egging her on. They told her to drink more, drink faster, and stop wasting everyone's time. God, people are pieces of shit on the internet, aren't they? It was believed by Lau's friends that this drink had been intended as a stunt to get the attention of her now ex-boyfriend who had so abruptly abandoned her. They claimed that she hadn't planned on drinking the whole bottle, and that it had been mixed with another liquid to water it down. Admittedly, that does what down? What is it though? We don't even know what it is. Admittedly, that does potentially give some credence to Zhao's claims that she used threats of self-harm as a form of manipulation, but also fuck Zhao. Besides, whatever the thousands of people watching Lo's stream were witnessing wasn't just an idle threat from an impudent brat trying to get away. It was a desperate act by someone who was very visibly broken. Ultimately, there's no way for us to know for sure what Lau's original intent that night really was, but eventually, all the negative voices in the chat got the best of her. She grabbed the bottle containing what would be later identified as pesticide. Oh, gross. Yeah, that stuff smells horrible. I know that liquid now, the dark kind of pesticide-y liquid. She quickly drank the entire thing in one go and waved the empty bottle in front of the camera, saying that didn't taste very good. As the trolls in chat congratulated Lau for drinking the entire bottle of what they may or may not have genuinely believed was poison, she began drinking water while staring blankly into the camera. At that point, she showed the label for the empty pesticide bottle to the camera, going on to drink a second mug full of water. It was then that she grabbed her throat, as if choking. The entire time, Lau's face had been completely dead and emotionless. Even at that moment, her face didn't seem to move a muscle, but her eyes told the full story. The empty stare that had filled her eyes for the entire stream suddenly disappeared, replaced with the unmistakable fear of imminent death. Lau ended the stream immediately and called 120, the Chinese phone number for emergency medical attention. Unfortunately, it was too late. She had drunk too much of the poison. On October the 15th, it was announced that Luo Maozi had died. Her body was cremated a few days later. Logically, you'd think that that's where the story ends today. But instead, it only got stranger. A worker at the funeral home named Xiao stole Luo's ashes, replacing them with an urn filled with a nondescript powder. Conspiring with two other employees from the funeral home, Zhang and Li, their plan was to sell Luo's ashes so that someone could marry. What the f? At this point, you're probably asking yourself, what the actual fuck? I was, Kevin, so allow me to explain. In some Eastern cultures such as China, especially among the more superstitious communities, there is a practice known as ghost weddings. This is the one. This was the original thing, the ghost weddings thing. This was like what I think I pitched to Kevin as the original idea, or he pitched to me, and there wasn't enough to it, so he expanded it into this anthology. This feels familiar. These date back thousands of years to the Han Dynasty, and the practice is believed to be rooted in the ancient philosophy of yin and yang. The yin has to merge with the yang in order to achieve peace and harmony, and an unmarried dead person is seen as violating this rule. Without a partner, the spirit would never find harmony in the afterlife. Not only that, but their lonely spirit could roam the earth, causing harm to befall their entire family. As such, if a man or woman died before getting married, the family would seek out a partner of the opposite sex so that they could perform a ghost wedding. There would be a traditional wedding ceremony followed by the two bodies being buried in the same grave together to ensure that neither of them were alone in the afterlife. Theoretically, that's really sweet, especially if the two people who died were already engaged, which did happen sometimes. But if there really is an afterlife, I'd prefer not to be randomly paired with a stranger for all eternity just because they happen to die around the same time that I did. Unless she's like ridiculously hot. Beyond just the spiritual ramifications of ghost weddings, there were practical and cultural concerns as well. They could be used to ensure that the eldest son got married before his youngest brothers as a means to unite two families or ensure the continuation of a family line. You confused by the last part? Well, so was I. Turns out ghost marriages aren't always between two dead people. If a man died while single, the idea was that his ghost bride could adopt a child to carry on the family name. The actual genetic lineage would be gone, but the name would still survive, and that's what really matters, I guess. It is. Okay. Of course, that was the old way of doing things back when marriages were legally binding and the ghost bride would have to live with her dead husband's family for the rest of her life. This is a weird China, like what the hell? These days, ghost marriages aren't legally binding, what with the practice having been made illegal in China some 75 years ago. Yes, good. It's very weird. In modern times, when the ghost bride was still alive, the bride would show up, get paid to take part in a weird macabre ceremony, and then be on her way to live her life. Even though ghost marriages have been illegal for longer than any of us have been alive, probably anyway, I mean, shout out to all the 75 plus people listening. Statistically, there's probably a few of you. What up? They remain popular, and in some cases, accepted in many superstitious Chinese communities. While I mentioned that a ghost marriage may involve someone who is still alive, that type of ceremony usually doesn't take place in mainland China. There, both parties must be deceased. This can pose a huge problem, as dead unmarried women aren't exactly an abundant resource. As a result, people would actually kidnap and murder women just to sell them off as ghost brides. What is going on? It's extremely fucked up, and I could go on for a while about it, but perhaps that's best saved for an episode of Into the Shadows. That is insane. Dude. Shandong province, where Luo lived, was known to have a large black market for female corpses. They were graded as either fresh ones, if the girl was recently deceased, wet bodies, if she'd only been dead for a couple of weeks or maybe months, and dried meat for any corpse older than that. This is weird. So weird. Prices scaled depending on how fresh the body was, along with several other factors. And in virtually every way, Lao would make the perfect ghost bride. She was young, only 25 when she died, unmarried, beautiful, successful, and from a well-educated family. The kind that would never agree to this sort of superstitious nonsense. Oh yes, I mentioned a black market, but many families would willingly sell the bodies of their deceased daughters as well, both to make money and so that their daughter wouldn't be alone in the afterlife. Anyway, while Luo was nearly the perfect ghost bride, her body had been cremated. Ashes certainly weren't off the table. It was just going to lower the price that Xiao, Zhang, and Lei could charge for Luo's remains. They were quick to find a buyer for $11,000. That's already on the higher end of what ghost brides sell for, but had she not been cremated, Luo could potentially have fetched double or triple that price. Fortunately, the deal fell through at the last minute, and the trio was forced to seek out another buyer. Not only did the potential next buyer not go through the purchase, they called the police on the thieves instead. Excellent. When the men were arrested, Zhang's wife said that it was just a way to make a little bit of money, and that it wasn't a big thing. It's only because people rush to make it a big deal that it becomes an issue. I don't know, selling someone's ashes so they can be married in some sort of weird superstitious thing is kind of sick, dude. Let's not mince words. So if I'm ever in Shandong province, I'll be sure to piss on her grave, since apparently stuff like that isn't a big deal. And if she isn't dead yet, I'll wait. Luo's ashes were returned to her family, but this entire incident opened a couple of large debates across China. One was about the already illegal practice of ghost marriages and the thriving black market of stolen corpses, human trafficking, and murder used to fill the demand for young, single dead women. The other was about cyberbullying, and it focused on one user in particular. During Lau's final livestream, there were a lot of people in the chat saying horrible things and egging her on, but there was one user more vocal than all the rest. The account's name was You're the Most Precious, and the profile picture featured a basketball player. This led to speculation the account was either a fan of Zhao or perhaps even Zhao himself. Lau's family tried to file charges against the user in the hopes of finding some semblance of justice for their daughter and establishing an important legal precedent. But they were never able to find out who the account belonged to. Douyin shut down the account, but there's no evidence they cooperated in trying to find who was behind it. In the end, there was no justice for Lau. Almost her entire adult life was spent being manipulated and exploited by men she loved, and who she believed loved her as well. And that life was tragically cut short, thanks to the incessant bullying resulting from Zhao's lies. Yeah, Zhao's a right piece of shit. What's he up to these days? I hope he's not doing successful. I hope he's not successful. Savannah and Trent Pashal. Trent Pashal's YouTube channel, close to home, was that of a typical middle-aged father from Texas. The videos featured things like taking his stepson for his first day of kindergarten, letting him race RC boats, and family trips to the Duck Dynasty store. It was all very mundane, and the videos received barely any views. But that all changed on October the 21st, 2020. It was Trent's 48th birthday, but the video wasn't of some family gathering. Instead, it featured Trent talking directly to the camera for 4 minutes, giving what was intended to be a heartfelt message to his children. He opened by saying, "I'm recording this because I want my daughter to know that I love you. Mackenzie Pashal, I'm so sorry I've done this. I want you to know that you mean everything to me. And William, I love you too. I love you so much. I love you like you're my own." This was already very different from the videos Trent usually uploaded, and it certainly sounded like it was going to be a final message to his family before taking his own life. Yeah, that's if you saw that, you'd be like, oh my god, what's about to happen? At least, at first it did. After telling his kids how much he loved them, Trent then said, "I didn't choose this, your mum chose this," before explaining that Savannah had been cheating on him for some time. He even said that he had audio recordings of her talking to other guys. Throughout this entire video, Trent tried unsuccessfully to make it seem as though he was crying. He also lost his train of thought twice during the video. Once was because he kept having to fix his hair because he was a raging narcissist with a fragile ego, really. The other time was because he kept looking away from the phone that he was recording the video on. After one of these distractions, Trent said, "Sorry, I keep looking at the cameras. I don't know how much time I have." The video continued for another 30 seconds after that, until Trent looked away to check the security cameras he'd set up outside his home, cameras that could see all the way down the street. He then stopped talking mid-sentence, grabbed his phone, and rushed to another room. It's difficult to see what's going on, since Trent was in a hurry and the phone's camera got blocked several times, but the video ended after the sound of a shower curtain being pulled back and then closed hard. At that point, Trent realized the video was still recording and finally stopped it. What is going on? From the start, the video was already a little bit disturbing. It had opened like a final goodbye from a man about to end his own life, but it quickly changed tone. The constant blaming of Savannah for making him do this and the description of a perceived infidelity suddenly made Trent's video sound a lot more like a murder confession. Though he didn't explicitly say it, his words made it clear that he intended to hurt Savannah badly enough that he'd never see his children again. But it was that final moment when things truly became clear. Trent had been constantly checking on the outside security cameras, waiting for his wife to return home. When the video ended, he was standing in the shower, gun in hand, waiting to ambush and kill her. So exactly how did they get to this point? Growing up, Savannah was very active in a variety of sports, from horseback riding to bowling. She was also very active with her church, attending a church camp every summer from childhood until the end of high school. However, in 2009, her life took an unexpected turn. Savannah was in a serious relationship, and her boyfriend had even bought her an engagement ring and proposed. But when she revealed that she was pregnant, he ghosted her. He completely disappeared from her life. Personally, I struggle to understand the motivation there. Dude had already proposed, so presumably he intended to actually marry her and have a family together. I get that her family was religious, but that's when you just plan the wedding really quickly and tell everyone the baby was born a couple of months premature, unless he only proposed in the first place to get her into bed and had no intention of marrying her. It's bizarre, but either way, the guy sounds like a real piece of shit. Yes, he does. Savannah gave birth to her son, William, and then began attending culinary school at Alvin College. Being a single mother is never easy, but she was doing her best to raise her son while making her way through college. Then in 2012, she met Trent in a parking lot of a grocery store. He helped her with her bags, and the two immediately hit it off. Trent was charming and had a big personality, and it didn't take long for the two to get serious. There were just a couple of problems. First, Savannah was 22 years old at this point. If you happen to remember what birthday I said Trent was celebrating the day he uploaded his video, then you realize he was already 40. That's obviously not illegal. Half your age plus 7. 27. Nope, too young. It feels weird. Now, this is obviously not illegal, but it's not great either. Trent was described as being a big kid himself, so he had no trouble fitting in with Savannah and her younger friends. He got along great with William too, especially because he had lots of cool toys William could play with, like drones and RC boats. The age difference didn't bother Savannah at all, but there was a bigger problem. Savannah's mother, Shirley, worked as a private investigator. As such, she had a habit of running background checks on her boyfriends. Great. You got a good to have a mum who's a private investigator. When she looked at Trent, she discovered that he had multiple arrests and a conviction that sent him to jail for 6 months. Oh my. Though I can't find any references to her mentioning it, she also likely would have discovered that Trent was twice divorced. Trent married his first wife in 1992 when he was 19 and she was 18, and they got divorced just over 12 years later. I mean, not so unusual. That's very young to get married. A year after his divorce, he married his second wife, this time 12 years younger than him. They stayed together for 6 years before getting divorced, which happened either before or possibly even after he met Savannah. A little bit more weird on that one. That's like a pretty short time, like big age difference. Yeah. As for the crimes, Trent explained that those days were all behind him, and the family seemed willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. His conviction was for property theft of greater than $1,500 but less than $20,000, and while nobody is condoning theft, at least it wasn't a violent crime. He went to prison for 6 months for that. It's pretty heavy. Can't they just go and give the money back and fine him? Maybe some community service, picking up some litter? Do we really need him in the jail system? Besides, Savannah and Trent appeared to really be in love. All her friends liked him, and he seemed to be a grey guy to everyone except her father, Mike. Mike never really approved of Trent, but it wasn't enough to change Savannah's mind. But it didn't take long for history to repeat itself. 6 months after Savannah and Trent had met, she was pregnant again, and it was time for Trent to disappear. Except, unlike her previous boyfriends, this wasn't Trent's decision. Instead, he was being sent to the county prison for another theft conviction. He pled guilty and agreed to 18 months in jail, of which 8 was served before his release. However, Savannah didn't lose faith in Trent. People make mistakes, and she believed that that's all this had been. And since Savannah forgave him, everyone, except Mike, did too. Once he was released from prison, it looked like things were going to be going great. Trent got steady work as a contractor and was making good money, so a few months after being released from prison, he proposed to Savannah. The two got married in 2014, and in 2016 moved to Lamarck, Texas. Her family helps them get a house there, and they seem to be living the perfect life. It was your stereotypical family home with a white picket fence and 2.5 children, with Trent being the 0.5. That would be kind of cute if this wasn't the casual criminalist and I know someone's going to get murdered. The first thing Trent did when they got the house was to build a workshop. He was a skilled craftsman, though it's not entirely clear whether the workshop was actually part of his job or just a place to tinker with drones and things. Either way, it wasn't anything nefarious, though not everybody felt the same way about his next project, installing security cameras. Some of Savannah's friends thought the cameras were great. They thought Trent wanted to keep his family safe, and they liked that Savannah and Trent could see their kids on the school bus all the way at the end of the street. Others disagreed though, finding it anywhere from strange to creepy. What's wrong with security cameras? It's not creepy. People have security cameras, or is that just a more modern thing, because like Ring and stuff? You've got security cameras. It's just a thing people have. It didn't help that Trent liked to keep tabs on Savannah at all times, making sure that he always knew where she was. Yeah, that's definitely more weird. At first, Savannah appreciated how attentive he was, though things eventually would go entirely too far. By 2019, both of the kids were in school, so it was time for Savannah to go back to work. Trent had done a good job of providing for the family, but she didn't want to sit around alone at home all day. And since she had gone to culinary school, it only made sense that Savannah would get a job doing hair and makeup for the deceased at a funeral home. Sounds about right for 95% of the college graduates I've ever known. Yes. Yes, I definitely fall into that category of doing something completely unrelated to what I studied. She was very good at her job, and the funeral home received a lot of compliments about how well she prepared the bodies. Savannah even started attending the Commonwealth School of Mortuary Science to expand her career possibilities. The job wasn't the only big change in her life, as she'd lost a lot of weight as well. Between her new job, new look, and happy family, it appeared to everyone like Savannah was going to be beginning a fantastic new chapter of her life. And at first, she was, though her family wasn't as happy as people believed. Trent didn't appreciate Savannah's newfound success. It meant she'd spend a lot of time out of the house and out of his control. Even though the job was only 32 hours a week, she had to make a lot of new friends as a result of the job. Anytime that Savannah wasn't home, Trent became extremely suspicious, assuming that she must be out cheating on him. Things only got worse the following year when the pandemic hit. Sometime before the pandemic started, Trent had stopped doing contracting work and began working at a scooter rental store. When the entire world shut down, it left him without an income. But there are certain jobs that remained open through the pandemic. Emergency services, grocery stores, and of course, funeral homes. Not only was Savannah's work still open for business, but business was booming. She would be called in frequently for extra hours beyond the 32 she signed on for, and she was happy to help out because she was a team player and, also money. Trent obviously was not happy. He had no source of income and spent all day at home with the kids while his wife was out providing. It gave him a lot of time to obsess, especially since Savannah was spending even more time out of the house. He would check on her constantly in every way imaginable. If Savannah said she was going to her parents, Trent would show up there to make sure that she was really there. He would track her phone to monitor her location, and even if she was just walking around at work, and if Savannah had to pick up and deliver a casket, Trent would make her stop to pick him up so that he could see with his own eyes exactly where she was at all times. Bro, this is really weird and possessive. This is really weird. You gotta have some trust, my dude, come on. No matter how much she tried to reassure him, nothing was enough to control Trent's jealousy. But in mid-2020, something wonderful happened. Trent was arrested and charged with Grand Theft Auto. Of course, he was a massive piece of shit, so he had to blame his crimes on Savannah. He didn't try to frame her or anything, but he said that it was her fault he had to steal a car to make money because she wanted nice things. Despite trying to make his crimes out to be Savannah's fault, Trent recognized that he was going to be going away for a long time, too long to expect her to wait around, so he offered to get divorced. Unfortunately, things didn't work that way. Due to some sort of clerical or procedural error, the charges were dropped, and Trent was going to remain a free man. As such, there was no longer a reason for him to agree to a divorce. Bro got off with GTA. Yikes. Because of a procedural error. But Savannah still wanted one. She had confided in a friend how relieved she was when it was all happening, but now she felt trapped. She told her mother that she wasn't going to raise her children with a criminal, and she intended to leave Trent and file for divorce. You knew he was a criminal before. You knew he'd been to prison. However, while Savannah had decided she wanted to leave, Trent decided he wanted to tighten his grasp on her. As if monitoring her location via GPS and checking up on her in person wasn't enough, he began hiding listening devices all around the house to record her private conversations. These are the conversations he alluded to in his video about her talking to other men. Things finally came to a head on Trent's 48th birthday. The previous year, he'd gotten extremely mad at Savannah for not wishing him happy birthday on Facebook early enough in the day. What the fuck? A perfectly reasonable reaction to an incredibly important oversight, especially since that reaction came from a man who was damn near 50 and not a fucking toddler. Dude, this is psycho. Like, what the fuck? This year, she made sure to wish him happy birthday online first thing before heading to work. She had a surprise party planned for him later that day, but first she had to go to the funeral home to help them live stream a service on Facebook. Throughout the entire service, Trent was texting and calling her non-stop, demanding that she come home. Savannah finally wound up leaving work and calling Trent on her way home. During their phone call, he said that he had a gun and a bullet for her. What? Why you doing what? Savannah called her mother to express her concern, and Shirley raced to the house as well. When she arrived, Savannah and Trent were outside the house arguing. A neighbor had overheard and already called the police, who showed up shortly thereafter. The police handled the call like a typical domestic dispute, requesting that Trent leave the house for 24 hours until everyone cooled off. Once he left, Savannah and her mother went to the kids' school to make sure that Trent wasn't allowed to check them out for the day. They then returned to the house just before noon, where Trent was waiting and recording his YouTube video. When they walked inside, Savannah immediately went to check the cameras to see if Trent had returned, and Shirley decided to use the restroom. As she stepped into the bathroom, Trent jumped out of the shower, brandishing a gun, threatening to kill both her and Savannah. Shirley quickly left the bathroom and tried to slam the door shut while Trent fought to keep it forced open. After a brief struggle, he relented, and Shirley closed the door before running. Trent emerged from the bathroom a moment later, confronting Savannah in the hallway and shooting her in the abdomen. Savannah tried to run for the bedroom, while Shirley ran for the door. Shirley got out and ran 2 doors down to where a state trooper lived, but Trent shot Savannah again in the living room. She began crawling towards the bedroom, bleeding out, and Trent grabbed the keys to the truck. He drove away when Shirley was returning, temporarily evading capture. Savannah was still alive, but she was unresponsive. After being rushed to the hospital, she was declared dead. That was when the infamous video was uploaded to YouTube, a pathetic man's last goodbye to his children and one final attempt to absolve himself of all responsibility and pin the blame for his actions on his victim. Once the video was uploaded, Trent called a friend in Houston. He said that he'd got in a fight with his wife and hit her, so he needed somewhere to crash and hide from the police. But he wasn't able to hide. Just a few hours after the murder, Trent's pickup was spotted in a Walmart parking lot. He wasn't inside it, so police staked out the car. It wasn't even 4 p.m. yet when the truck was located, but the night had already fallen by the time Trent returned. They knew that he was armed and involved in a murder, so police surrounded the vehicle, drew their weapons, and demanded he get out of the car. Trent did get out, but he did so holding his gun. Rather than going back to prison, he had decided to commit suicide by cop. One of the officers believed that Trent fired his weapon and returned fire, sending him to the ground so that he could be handcuffed. At that point, Trent said the gun wasn't loaded and that he wanted to die. He told the police, "Y'all did a bad job at shooting me." An ambulance was brought to the scene, and Trent was taken to hospital. One of the officers rode in the ambulance as well, and Trent explained that he'd shot and killed his wife, then tried to shoot himself but ran out of bullets. Shockingly, much to the displeasure of Savannah's parents, Trent was released on a $550,000 bail. He's for murder! It's murder! He was ordered to stay at his parents' house and wear an ankle monitor, but there was one small problem with that. Authorities hadn't realized that as a result of his injuries after having been shot, there was significant swelling in Trent's leg and ankle. Once the swelling went down, he was able to easily slip the monitor on and off. Since he didn't actually break it off, the monitor never alerted the police to the fact that it had been removed. At first, Trent used his newfound freedom simply to violate the terms of his release, coming and going from his parents' house as he pleased. Eventually, however, he decided it was time to get the hell out of Dodge. Yeah, dude, you're up on a murder charge, bro. You gotta flee. Come on. And you got a miracle position you could slip off your ankle monitor, dude? You gotta move to Lebanon, let's go! Trent went to a car dealership, claiming that he wanted to test drive a car. The salesman could tell there was something off about him, but didn't think that he was going to steal a car. Shortly after the test drive began, Trent pulled out a knife and demanded the salesman get out of the car. He then drove off and mostly disappeared for the next 8 months. I only say mostly disappeared, because although the police weren't able to catch up to him, Trent kept making his whereabouts known. He'd started seeing a new girl, and they frequently posted videos to TikTok of what they were doing. Savannah's parents believed he was doing it to taunt them, though I suspect it had little to do with them and everything to do with his ego at evading the police. But this didn't go on for that long before Trent disappeared entirely. He'd spent the entire time thus far in Texas, but he finally decided to go on the road. He traveled to the Scoody Swarm in Missouri, a massive gathering for fans of the nomadic lifestyle. As far as I can tell, nomadic lifestyle means out-of-work hippies who live in vans and refurbished school buses traveling the country doing nothing in particular. There he also met another woman named Catherine, who he began a relationship with. Except as far as 32-year-old Catherine knew, he was a 42-year-old divorcee named Trevor, not a 48-year-old murderer named Trent. The two roamed the country together for the remainder of the year, with Catherine believing that Trent was just a sweet, loving guy. But that all changed on New Year's Eve 2021, when the couple had set up camp in Florida. Trent had a bag he kept next to him at all times, and when he fell asleep that night, Catherine decided to take a little peek inside. She knew that he kept a gun in it, but she had no idea what else he had. Inside, she found a clearly fake paper ID and a bunch of gift cards. But hidden beneath that, she found his real Texas driver's license with the name Trent Paschal on it. One quick Google search later, and Catherine grabbed her kids and got the hell out of the van with the sleeping murderer in it. She called 911 to alert them to Trent's location, and police officers swarmed the scene. They knew he was armed and not particularly interested in being taken into custody, two factors that combined to result in an extremely dangerous suspect, so the police did not immediately try to approach the van. After getting into position, they got on a megaphone and told Trent to come out with his hands up. Instead, they heard the sound of a muffled gunshot. After 8 months on the run, Trent had taken his own life. When the Texas police held a press conference to reveal that Trent was finally dead, Shirley was given the opportunity to speak as well. She explained her mixed emotions over the situation. Did I want him to be held responsible for his actions? Did I want to look him in the eye for him to face me again with what he'd done? Yes. Am I sorry he no longer walks on this earth? No. Despite being removed from YouTube, Trent's video continues to live on in infamy. It was a video of a man trying to feign emotion while explaining why he was about to do something horrible, cutting out abruptly when his victim arrived home. While most people who have seen this video realize it was shot just before he murdered Savannah, few knew the full extent of the hell he put her through in the years leading up to that day. If nothing else, this story serves a cautionary tale to never trust anybody that old who cares that much about their birthday. Yes, nice ending to today's episode. I like doing an anthology. I think this was fun. If you'd like to see more of them, let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for being here.